Carob is a bean, so if you are sensitive to legumes, any type of beans or alfalfa, peas, pea protein, you are probably also going to have problems with any type of carob products, so you probably want to avoid this. But carob is a bean, so it has a higher sugar content, it has higher carbs. Not all carob is the same. I like Red Mill's carob powder. It has a richer, more consistent taste that I prefer to other brands. You may prefer other brands to this one. This was just the one that, after trial and error, this is the one that I always come back to for the best results for baking or whatever it is that I'm doing with it. So I use this carob powder. Carob does not have any fat content in it, as opposed to chocolate, which is all fat and no sugar. Carob has no caffeine, it has no oxalates, but it does have a sugar content, and it is a bean. Chocolate is a seed, so they're slightly different in many, many, many ways. Use this raw coconut butter by this brand. I love it. It's great. If you're going to buy coconut butter, I think this is a great brand to buy. But some companies are calling their coconut oil coconut butter, so do be careful. They are very different. Coconut butter is like peanut butter. It's ground up coconut, like peanut butter is ground up peanuts. So this is what I use, and I'm going to put some in here. I usually wouldn't heat it up like this, but it's winter time, it's cold, and so the coconut butter is quite hard, even though I don't refrigerate it. And so I'm going to put that in here. And some of you will hate the fact that I don't use recipes, and some of you will love the freedom that creates by not having to follow strict rules. So it's in here, and the coconut is going to soften a lot while it's over the heat of my makeshift double boiler. This option I like better because the coconut gives the carob bark a little bit of a texture. The coconut is a little bit sweet, so it gives it another aspect of sweetness. And because it's oily, it creates the same sort of feel quality about it as chocolate would. So it's actually really already getting very soft here, as you can see. So I'm just going to let it sit there like that while it continues. And I'm going to open my bag. This is going to probably be very messy. I have already prepared my jar. I keep all of my grains, powders, and everything in ball canning jars. They have airtight lids, so I don't ever have to worry about the bugs. And I've already got my little label on here. It says toasted carob powder, and I put the date that it's going to expire on here, so I know how long it's been in there if I forget. So I will put that in here afterwards, and my coconut is very liquidy now, so I'm going to take my spoon and I'm going to start adding powder to it. It's kind of like a pastry. If you've ever made pastry crust, you have to work the powder into the oil medium, usually butter. So I am just going to start adding carob here. So it's very simple. There are really only 2 ingredients here. So I've added a lot. I've added 3 heaping soup spoons of this stuff in there. And I'm just going to gently, without creating too much of a mess from the powder. Carob powder is very light and flyaway, so you don't want any fans or any sort of wind going around. And I'm just going to start to work it in. It looks like I might have put too much powder in here, which is good. It's good when I make mistakes so that you understand making mistakes is not a big deal. I don't think I'm going to add any more coconut butter to this, so I'm going to let this sit here. It's too cold inside my place now because it's winter time, and it didn't do what I was wanting it to do. So we're going to use a plan B. It's in hard chunks, which means that the coconut was too cold to be able to really embed into the carob. So I'm going to do plan B, and I'm going to put it in the oven to melt this. I'm going to leave it in there for about 15 minutes, and we're going to cook it, and that we're going to see what happens. I may need to add a little bit more or a little bit more coconut oil to get this more like a chocolate. And the good thing about putting this in the oven is that when you cook carob, it will deepen the flavor of it, and it tastes very different when it's been baked in bread than when it's in its more raw state. And this is in its more raw state. So I'm going to put it in the oven, and we're going to see what happens here. I just pulled it out of the oven, and I'm going to have to add some more oil to this because it's not getting as soft as it should. So I'm going to add some more oil. And I put it in the oven at like 350. I didn't want to go over that because coconut oil has some health benefits, and those health benefits stay in the coconut oil up until 350 degrees. For those of you who are aware of ketogenic energy and ketogenic diets, the coconut oil beyond 350 begins to lose that beneficial property. So I'm going to keep it below 350 so that I don't lose that advantage. So I'm just going to work this in, and then I'm going to put it back in the oven again and cook it up some more. So I'll be back again in another 20 minutes or so. So I just pulled it out of the oven. It's been in there for another 15 minutes. Gosh, it's really hard to do this. And it's all melted in there. And the coconut, if I were to have just added coconut oil, it would be a lot smoother. But I put the coconut butter, which is like a equivalent of a peanut butter. So it's a coconut puree. So it's going to give it a little bit more of a texture, but it also makes it a little bit sweeter. But I'm going to pull out my coconut chips and my walnuts, and I'm going to mix some in here and put it on my flexible mat to make some bark. So I pulled out some walnuts and some coconut chips, and the bowl is a little bit cooler, and they're cold because they were in the refrigerator. So this is going to gel up and create a thicker coat than it would be if the coconut and the walnuts were at room temperature or warmer. Put it all in there. This isn't the best bowl because it's too small to really stir this up. So it's a little bit more resistant to being smoothed in, and it's also more resistant because I added cold things to a hot substance, so it's forcing it to harden a lot faster. And just like the chocolate bark, I'm going to put this on my mat on the smooth side so that it's easy to get off when I take it out of the refrigerator, and then I'll put it in the refrigerator to harden, and then it'll be all done. And you can pretty much add anything to the carob. It will create a different taste. And you can leave this, I tend to make it thinner, but you can leave it thick and have bigger chunks, or you can separate them into little pieces on the mat already. I tend to spread them out thinner just because it's easier to get off, and that's typically how I eat it. So I'm going to spread it out. You can tell it's pretty black. The cooking process will darken it considerably as it also smooths out and darkens the flavor of the carob too. So there I have it. I'm going to put this in the fridge. It'll probably take about 10 or 15 minutes. The other thing about making it thinner is that the time in the refrigerator will be less. And if I leave this on the mat until tonight or tomorrow morning without pulling it out of the refrigerator, it's absolutely not a problem. It doesn't really matter. But if you want to eat it real fast, you can count on it being about 10 or 15 minutes to harden. Hardening this off, and I'm going to put it in Tupperware now. And for those of you who don't know, carob has a lot of pectin. It can be very healing for the GI tract if you have irritation. It is also a good probiotic, which means it will feed the microbiomes in your intestine, which can also be very healing for your GI tract if you have GI tract problems.